All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about a really crucial piece of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I'm talking about Title VI. We're going to unpack what this law actually means for public transit and what it takes to get non-discrimination done right. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the whole point. A lot of us hear civil rights and immediately think about employment. But for public transit, Title VI is all about you, the rider. It's about how that bus or train service actually shows up for every single person in the community.
So here's the bedrock principle, the absolute foundation of all of this. If a transit agency takes even a single dollar in federal funding, they've basically signed on the dotted line. They've made a promise that they will not discriminate based on race, color, or national origin. It's a non-negotiable part of the deal.
So why does Title VI matter so much in this space? Well, it's way more than just a line of text in a law book. The Federal Transit Administration, the FTA, they interpret this stuff very, very broadly. It's not just about stopping someone from doing something obviously discriminatory. It's about making sure the entire system, from the ground up, is built to be fair. And this right here really shows you just how wide that net is cast. The FTA is looking at everything. I mean, are some neighborhoods getting less frequent service? Can everyone, including people who don't speak English, figure out how to use the system? When a bus route gets cut, who feels that pain the most? Are the fares fair for everybody? It really touches every single part of what it's like to be a rider. Okay, so if you're a transit agency, how do you actually prove you're living up to the standard? Well, the FTA came up with a clear solution, the Title VI program. You can think of it as a formal, structured framework, a toolkit really, with 5 key parts that are designed to build fairness right into the DNA of an agency's operations. And here they are, the 5 pillars that every single transit agency has to have in place. It's like a checklist for accountability, and we're going to walk through each one so you can see exactly how they all fit together to create this framework for fairness. First up is something that sounds simple but is absolutely fundamental. You have to tell people what their rights are. An agency can't just have a non-discrimination policy collecting dust in a filing cabinet somewhere. They have to be proactive about it, letting the public know, hey, we don't discriminate, and here's exactly what to do if you feel you've been treated unfairly. And that notice has to be everywhere. The FTA expects to see it posted in all these key spots where riders will actually see it. But what's really interesting here is that it's not a one-and-done kind of deal. Agencies have to prove that these notices are kept up to date and stay visible to the public over time. So next up, you need a system for listening. This means every agency has to have a formal, written-down process for how they handle discrimination complaints. We're not talking about an informal chat here. It has to be a documented procedure, outlining every step from how you submit a complaint to how it's investigated and resolved. And this right here, this is one of the most common places smaller agencies get tripped up. Even if you get 0 complaints, absolutely none, you still have to keep an empty log. Why? Because that empty, dated log is your proof. It proves you have a system ready to go and that you're actively looking for issues, which is exactly what the FTA needs to see. That's the perfect question, right? And it leads us straight into the next critical piece of the puzzle, which is all about making sure the system is accessible to everyone, no matter what language they speak. An agency has to have a real plan to serve riders who have limited English proficiency. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a requirement. And the plan has to be based on reality, on the actual demographics of the area they serve, which they find out using census data. Even if there's just a small population that needs language help, they still need a plan. So what kind of stuff actually needs to be accessible? Well, the FTA uses this term, vital documents. Basically, it's all the core information you need to actually use the transit system. I mean, think about it. If you can't read the route map or understand how much the fare is, you're effectively locked out of the service. Now this one gets right to the analytical heart of the whole Title VI program. It's pushing beyond just communication and asking about the very structure of the service itself. Are the good things and the bad things about the system being shared fairly across the entire community? And there's only one way to answer a question like that, with data. Agencies literally have to analyze how their service is spread out. Are more service hours going to certain neighborhoods? Are new bus shelters only showing up in one part of town? This analysis is all about using cold, hard facts to prove fairness, not just claiming it exists. And finally, the fifth piece of this puzzle is all about engaging the community. Agencies are required to have a process to actively bring the public into the conversation, especially minority and low-income groups, whenever they're planning big changes like raising fares or cutting a route. Their voices have to be heard and have to be part of the decision-making. All right, so now that we've got the 5 components down, let's talk about where things can go wrong. Honestly, understanding these common trip-ups is the best way to see the difference between a Title VI program that's just a document on a shelf and one that actually makes a difference in the real world. So here's a classic mistake you see with that service equity analysis. An agency can't just say, "Trust us, it's fair." It doesn't work that way. The FTA expects to see the homework, the maps, the charts, the data that shows the agency actually did the work to check if their service is distributed fairly. Oh, and this one is all about walking the talk. You see, it's pretty easy to write a beautiful plan that promises to translate documents into 5 different languages. But if there's no money budgeted for it and nothing ever actually gets translated, well, that plan is basically meaningless. The FTA is looking for a plan that's realistic and, more importantly, a plan that's actually being used. And finally, documentation is everything. If an agency makes a big service cut, they have to be able to show their work. That means providing the sign-in sheets from public meetings, copies of the flyers they posted, summaries of the feedback they got, because without that paper trail, from the FTA's point of view, it's like the public was never even asked. So let's pull all these threads together. These 5 requirements, they aren't just a bunch of bureaucratic hoops to jump through. They all connect to a much, much bigger idea about what public transportation is supposed to be. And this is really why it all matters so much. This is about more than just checking a box to pass an audit. A strong Title VI program builds real trust with the community it serves. It helps ensure that services are genuinely fair and accessible for everyone. At the end of the day, this is the framework that helps public transit live up to its promise of serving the entire public. And all of this leaves us with a final thought, a question for you to take with you. Now that you know what to look for, the public notices, the language access, the documented public meetings, you can start to see your own local transit system through a new lens. And the question Title VI really asks all of us to answer is this: is it truly designed for everyone?